welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents our NBA Fantasy Baller DFS edition for Monday, May 1st, 2017. Hard to believe, but we are definitely here. It's the beginning of May. We don't have much NBA DFS left. While there's still a lot of big prize pools out there, I mean, you have to admit the fun portion of NBA DFS is gone. You could definitely make some money in the postseason. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just saying on a whole, the fun that comes with a 12-game slate and trying to differentiate your lineups is over and gone for the time being. What we'll be touching on today is the start of the second round of playoff games. We've got Toronto at Cleveland, and we've got Houston at San Antonio. Both of those should be fun series. Last night, yesterday afternoon, whatever you want to call it, Boston took a 1-0 lead on Washington. The Jazz predictably closed out the Clippers, and what I believe will probably be the last stand of the Chris Paul, Blake Griffin era. So that should be a fun offseason there. So let's start with Toronto visiting Cleveland. It's going to be interesting to see how Cleveland comes out and plays. Toronto, a much better team than the Indiana Pacers. I believe a more complete team than the Indiana Pacers. And Cleveland, while they can score a ton of points, this team kind of looked like the New Orleans Saints out there with the Indiana Pacers. It looked like a team that could score a lot, but it looked like a team that was going to give a lot of points up. This series, I believe, last year went to 7 full games, was the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not, I really don't want to think that Toronto could win, but aside from last year, I think we kind of saw that really anything is possible with a LeBron-led Cavs team. We know long into his history how things can turn out there. So on the Toronto side of the ball, I mean, it's going to be DeMar DeRozan, it's going to be Kyle Lowry, and basically that's how to get to Cleveland as is. I mean, I've always felt that the way to go through Cleveland is through their guard positions, and that's how we're going to do it in DFS tonight, because we definitely need to find our best possible targets for Toronto. Outside of that, Norman Powell's priced up, but he actually still has enough upside at the price that I really don't mind using him. It's tough to say when a series is starting exactly how everything will fit together. With that being said, I would have to assume that maybe they won't play. I really don't know. They might not play big. It's tough to say where Jonas Valanciunas slots into things. I think that Serge Ibaka is still in play here because, again, he's kind of like Norman Powell, where his price is pretty reflective of what he's been doing, and he doesn't have to do that much in terms of going over and above to hit that 5x value marker, at least on FanDuel. Outside from that on Toronto, I mean, you can always punt with DeMarre Carroll, PJ Tucker. Neither one of them have really shown any oomph in the postseason. But again, like I said, things change series to series. DeMarre Carroll, I believe, was a guy who, in the regular season for Atlanta a couple years ago, really gave Cleveland some problems. PJ Tucker definitely has a skill too. Patrick Patterson is just about the only one who I'm completely writing off. I remember him being a turnstile last year in the finals against the Cavs. On the Cleveland side of the ball, you're looking at LeBron James' price. Really tough to kind of fathom paying that. I kind of mentioned in my article that, LeBron is not as good as at Russell Westbrook, and to clarify that, I was not saying that LeBron is not as good of a basketball player as Russell Westbrook, but I was just trying to say, and even tonight you can draw a little bit of comparison as well with James Harden. Like, if you had two guys priced at 12.8 in the regular season, and one was LeBron James and one was Russell Westbrook, which guy were you picking? Okay, so for LeBron's price to be where it's at right now, and I get it, he's had some pretty solid games. You're not going to be upset about 61, 55, 77, 59. But at that 12-8 marker, you know, you need him to absolutely explode. He's getting minutes in the early 40s to mid 40s. There's no reason to believe that that won't continue tonight. But the bottom line is, between he and Harden, those two are the most likely to put up a ridiculous score. So it's almost in your best interest to just suck it up, play him or Harden, whichever one your preference is, and build around them. Because if LeBron, even if he gets 55 points and he doesn't hit value, there's a chance that no one else can get to that mark. And even though he didn't hit that 5x we searched for, he's still going to be one of the top plays of the game. To me, Kyrie comes in a little bit overpriced, as does Kevin Love. You know, Love was really struggling for the most part to get going. Irving got going, but in terms of his fantasy production, just never really got to the point where he, you know, made value. Just looking through things, Love was below 27 fantasy points in 3 of the 4 games. He exceeded value 1 time. Irving had 3 games between 37 and 40, 1 game under 20. He hit value no times. So, I mean, it's just kind of a situation where these guys have to be on your tournament radar, because there's not too many Kyrie Irvings on the slate tonight. So if he does go off and you don't have him, you're probably stuck. In terms of value plays, I kind of don't mind Deron Williams at his price. I don't mind Channing Frye at his price. I think that both of those guys could be worthwhile options to look at in tournaments. Moving on to Houston and San Antonio, this should be a very interesting series. Houston side of the ball, hard to not start looking with James Harden. He's in a good position, and he put together some really good games against San Antonio this year. As it is, Trevor Ariza, I expect to be exercised heavily on the defensive side of things against Kawhi Leonard. His offensive production was very, very low in the opening series. We do get a pretty strong price adjustment, but even at this price, he only managed to hit value in 1 game, and it wasn't value in the 1 game because he was still priced over $6K. But 5,300, I mean, we know Ariza's a solid basketball player. He could get hot just like anyone else from this team behind the arc, and he's always a threat to come up with a handful of steals. And really, that's when he does his best, is when he could come up with a good amount of steals. So I'm not completely writing him off. Definitely not my favorite. Patrick Beverley against Tony Parker. I like Beverly here, 5,400. Not a huge salary to have to go over the top with. I think he's a guy who could score in the mid-30s if everything falls right. And then Eric Gordon, Lou Williams, both of these guys priced reasonably. Both of them have the ability to exceed value. Always tough to say what's going to happen with San Antonio, because they could definitely shut a team down. But you got to make choices today. You know, we're down to 2 games. Like I said, you can't, you know, beggars really can't be choosers in this situation. I don't mind Clint Capella either, but I think you can, and actually, you really can't do better, so maybe Clint Capella is a guy we need to be looking at. On the San Antonio side of the ball, starts and ends with Kawhi Leonard. That's a really heavily inflated price. He only got to that point once in the series with the Grizzlies. Obviously, Houston, much more favorable matchup than that with the Grizzlies, but I don't know how much you're really looking matchup in playoff basketball. Segueing off of that, Tony Parker, you know, a lot of people might say Patrick Beverley defense, and okay, you might have a couple of games in the series where that looks true, but Tony Parker's having to exercise more offensive muscle. He's getting more heavily involved. This plays perfectly into the Greg Popovich mentality of, let's keep our guys rested for when it counts, and that's why you see Parker going out there having a little more rope to work with, and seeing those minutes that were, you know, in the early 20s now into the 30s in the last few games with Memphis. So like him, LaMarcus Aldridge, good play. Excuse me. The Houston Rockets have an ineptitude when it comes to defending big men. So even though Aldridge wasn't exactly great during the last series, I think he could come through here. David Lee, another guy who I think, as long as he remains in the starting lineup, he's someone I really don't mind looking at because I could see him kind of taking advantage of the situation around him. And Pau Gasol did not play very well at all in the Memphis series, did not play much at all. So, you know, one kind of has to wonder, are we going to see a situation here where, you know, he gets a little more time than normal? If that's the case, I definitely want to have some exposure to Pau Gasol. That'll wrap it up for today. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com. Sign up for our NBA mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win. And join us again tomorrow.